So, welcome everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of Business Networking with Vipul Bondal on Thinkly Talks. Yesterday was a holiday, so we had to move our discussion for today to Thursday, and I'm very happy that our guest today, despite the busy schedule that he keeps, has spared the time today, and I'm very thankful to Tarun Bansal. Tarun is the president of Sagacious IP. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Tarun. He is a biologist by education and an entrepreneur by passion, he says. He's got over 15 years of experience in multiple business areas, including intellectual property, research and technology, evaluation, and IP IP commercialization. At present, he is involved in growing Sagacious IP, one of the largest global IP research and consulting firms with offices in 8 countries and a certified great place to work, while inking a successful journey of 12 years with Sagacious. Tarun, along with his team of 250 plus techno-legal professionals, has been helping clients in developing, creating, identifying, protecting, maintaining, enforcing, and monetizing their IP rights. Well, that's a lot of words for which I want to know the meaning of. And Tarun, I'll begin straight with a question, if you don't mind. Can you tell us what is IP? What does it mean? Because a lot of our people who would have joined us today, the word IP they might have heard somewhere, but they actually don't know what it means. So who else better than you to explain what IP means and what does it do? We all know IPL, incidentally, but we don't know
Yes,
IP. Okay, go ahead.
surely. And Vipul, before I answer, I just wanted to correct few things because I think you took the introduction from my LinkedIn,
Yeah,
and maybe I updated that 4 or 5 years ago.
all
So
right.
it's
Okay,
already now 16 plus years
16
that I
plus
have
years.
been involved with Sagacious, and now Sagacious has grown to more than 500 people,
Oh,
and
fabulous.
we are probably the largest globally in the services that we provide at the moment.
Okay.
So yeah, with that,
So
yeah,
stand corrected. I stand corrected, and I'm happy that it's even better than what I introduced you to be. So please go ahead.
no, I just realized that I need to update my LinkedIn.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So coming back regarding IP. So
Right.
IP, if you look at its full form, it's intellectual property, right? So you have properties in real life, like you have a piece of land, you might have a laptop, you might have a bottle. Everything is, if you buy it, it's your property. So something similar. So we have intellectual property.
All right.
Intellectual property, in very simple terms, mean creations of human mind. So anything which is created using human mind, which is unique and new, it's intellectual property. And government gives you some rights to basically protect that intellectual property. So you have exclusive right of using that. So, for example, if you buy a property, it's the government who is registering that thing on your name, and now you have exclusive right to basically use that property. You can actually deny anyone permission to set foot on your property, or you can lease it, you can license it, you can sell it as you deem.
All right.
So that's very similar with intellectual property. So now if we look at it from a business context, because I believe a lot of people who might be joining us today, they will be from startups or planning to do some startups or are already running some small or medium sized businesses. So in terms of business, if we talk about intellectual property, so anything, whatever you are doing, to basically differentiate your product or service. So, because in business, you always try to differentiate yourself by having a good name, by having a good product, or by having a good design. So, everything that you do, if it is new and unique, it can be an intellectual property. So, for example, if I am into a clothing business and I design a new pattern of the cloth, which is much better than the competitors, so I have created an intellectual property if this design was never created before.
Right.
Similarly, if I invent something, so for example, when Amazon was doing e-commerce and they invented one-click ordering, so they created something that's an intellectual property. It was never done before, and it gave a lot of convenience to consumers, and they differentiated their product, making it much easier for customers to basically use it. So it was an invention, and it was an intellectual property.
Right.
Similarly, when let's say this hamburger chain, which we call as McDonald's today, so when they were growing up, so they actually thought that we should call it McDonald's, or they bought it from someone maybe. But this McDonald's was a differentiator that they wanted to basically use at very fast food, where
Right.
you just come very quickly, you get it, and McDonald's became synonymous to it. So McDonald's, the naming is an intellectual property. So you see the mascot on every McDonald's store where the mascot is sitting. That's an intellectual property.
Okay.
Similarly, if you design a slogan, you write some poems, or you create some music, some composition, that's an intellectual property. So
Right.
now, when it comes to business, you have two options. Uh, Especially with the inventions, you have two options. One is to keep those inventions or that intellectual property a secret, so you do not reveal it, or you have an option to basically go to the government and say, I'm ready to reveal my secrets, but in return I want some protection that
Right.
nobody else can use it without my permission. So
Right.
that's where the intellectual property rights actually come into a picture. So intellectual
Okay.
property are actually becomes your property when you exercise intellectual property rights which are offered by various governments. So there are four major type of intellectual property rights. The first one is a patent. So patent is the most complex right because it requires a proper invention. So some
Right.
idea that comes to your mind, unless you implement it, and you implement it in a way that anyone else can replicate it, that becomes an invention, and that is something you can patent.
Right.
Government gives you 20 years to basically monopolize it, but there are other people who are free to use it to research it. So the overall aim here is to develop the society further, because if I kept that secret, nobody else would know about it, and
Correct.
nobody would be able to improve it further. The
Right.
second most important intellectual property right is trademark, which we see all around us, like McDonald's, Nike, Tata, Reliance. So when we say any of these words, the consumers paint a picture of your business. The Tata
Correct.
is a very large and reputable company, or
Right.
Nike is very good running shoe. So anything which actually differentiates our brand, it's a logo or a name, that's a trademark. Third one that we often see is industrial designs. So we see that in shape of bottles. For example, Coca-Cola has a very special bottle, so that would be
Correct.
protected by industrial design. You are launching some curtain lines, so you have specific patterns. All that is designs. And
Okay.
finally, the fourth one, which is very popular, is copyright. So
Copyright.
copyright is one very interesting intellectual property because you do not need to register it. So as soon as
Okay.
you basically publish it anywhere or you publish it publicly, you are the owner of that copyright. Somebody can challenge it saying that I wrote it first, then it's a litigation. But otherwise, if you have a public proof that I wrote it at this point, you are automatically granted that copyright. So copyright is very interesting because you write something, a poem, a story, a slogan, you make a movie, you develop a script, or you compose some music. Everything is protected by copyrights. And
So as
then there
soon
are
as you as soon as you publish it, it becomes you become the owner of the copyright. You don't have to necessarily register
you
it.
don't have to register it. But yeah, when it's very valuable, like a movie or a song, or let's say a book or something, then people typically protect it using the legal means. But otherwise, it's an automatically granted right. Yeah, and then there are many more IP rights like geographical indications. When you say Kolhapuri chappal, so you associate that
Oh
this
yeah.
product will be of high quality because it is coming from Kolhapur. Or you say Rasagulla, so you know that yeah, it is coming from Bengal and it's a good thing. So nobody else, let's say somebody sitting in Punjab who is not associated with Bengal, cannot produce that Rasgulla. Or sitting in Delhi, I cannot produce those Kolhapuri chappal. So consumers associate themselves with that particular geographical region producing high
Right.
quality products. So that's another form of intellectual property rights. And then there are many more. But these are the four or five that we should
These
be
are the
aware.
four or five main. I remember, in the early 2000s when this whole discussion around intellectual property happened, there was a lot of discussion on who's going to patent neem and who's going to patent basmati rice and so on. So I think that discussion is exactly what you're saying to say. So when you say basmati, you kind of relate it to a specific location in the world.
Yes,
Likewise, let's say Banarasi pan is obviously,
from Banaras.
from
Yeah.
Banaras and so on. So yeah, thank you very much for that fabulous introduction. I think it's made it a little easier for people to understand, because we typically hear it, that so and so movie director was talking about certain movie and copyright, and it confuses the hell out of people, because typically people don't understand these things. So uh, thank you very much for that lovely start and lovely introduction. So I'll come to the most important theme of our discussion today, which is monetizing your innovation through IP. So when we say that, we again, these are things you hear. People. I hear a lot of people saying, somebody told me you should, take up IP on this podcast, for instance. I mean, what does it mean in simple English? If you can please explain, and if you can tell us, how does one go about it?
Sure, sure. So I think this is the question that I will take up slightly longer.
Sure,
And
please go ahead.
I would really recommend people who are listening to basically make some notes
Sure,
because that will make it much easier for you to basically relate to it.
sure.
So what I will do is for this question, because monetization of IP is one of the topics that does not get too much attention. We
Right.
talk about protecting our IP and all that. But
Correct.
what after protecting the IP? We have so many intellectual property rights that are there, but I mean, they're not generating any value to anyone. So
Right.
this topic is very important. So I thought I'll spend some time on this particular topic, and I would request you to make notes.
Please.
First, I will tell you what are the top 5 or 6 ways in which you can monetize your IP. And when I say IP, just make a note that I'm talking holistically about any kind of IP, like
All right.
patent, trademark, designs, and maybe copyrights as well. There might be some nuanced differences between how you go about each of those IP rights, but
Right.
typically it will apply to all of them in some manner or the other.
All right.
And for each type, let's say 5 or 6 ways that I will discuss today, I will give you some examples that you can relate to as well,
Sure.
right? So first, I want you to make note that there are 5 or 6 major ways in which you can monetize your IP. The first one is very straightforward. You have an IP which you created to differentiate your product or your service. You simply convert it into a product or a service. So you launch a product based on this particular IP that you created, whether it is a trademark, whether it is an invention, whether it is a design. So you launch a product or a service using this IP right, and that in that way you are excluding your competitors from using the same thing, and you are
Correct.
monopolizing the market and getting that particular return. So that's the first way. I will give
Right.
you examples later for each of them.
Sure. Sure.
Second one is, let's say you got some IP, you do not have the manufacturing capabilities, you do not have the capability to basically provide services based on that IP, but
Right.
you feel this IP is very valuable to someone else who has the capacity to build, who has the capacity to take it to market. So
Right.
you have two options now. One option is you license that IP to them. You say,
Right.
okay, I'm licensing this IP. I am the owner, but I'm licensing this IP, like you rent your property. So let's say you
Right.
have a property, you cannot run an Airbnb. So you say, okay, I'm licensing it to this company who will run Airbnb and earn the profits, and you have some terms and conditions. So that
Right.
is one way of doing it. So you license that thing to someone else who is able to monetize it in the by launching product or service based on it. Second is you say, okay, I don't have to do anything about it. I got this IP created, I generated this. Now I just want a payment in one go, right? So what you do is you just sell that IP to someone else.
Hmm.
So for example, you created a very beautiful property and everything, and now you just want to basically earn quick money
Right.
and generate capital. So you sell it, right?
Right.
So that's the third way. Fourth is you can use it to raise investment, right? So for
Okay.
example, you can go to investors and you can show them that why my IP piece is so relevant that we can together launch a product or service based on it. So you can give me this money, and this gives confidence to the investors that yeah, there is barrier to entry. Nobody else can easily enter this. So that's
Right.
another. Fifth is getting a loan. So like you can use your property as a collateral. intellectual property rights like patents can be used as a collateral, and banks can evaluate them, and if they find them worthy, so they can give you loan against it. So it's a very established practice in some countries like US and others, but slowly and steadily it's getting popularity in India as well, as banks start to recognize IP as a valuable asset, and people have
Right.
started to show those assets in their balance sheets as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And last is you can use IP rights to defend yourself with respect to competition. So, for example, I mean, when you launch product, you are in thick of basically market competitions. Sometimes what happens is you use some of the rights that other companies have. So, I mean, you do not intend it, but it so happens that you are doing something that is protected by the other company. So, in
Correct.
such cases, either you have to pay them the damages or licensing fee, or if you already have protected something and they are also using your IP rights, you can easily cross license and negotiate with them. So, this helps you basically preserve your revenue streams and other things. So these are the 6 ways, but I'll be focusing on first 5, and
Okay.
I'll give you some examples of each.
Okay.
So coming back to the first one, launching the differentiated products, right? So nobody else can copy. You create a barrier to entry, and the government gives you basically a window of monopoly
Right.
that you can utilize to basically be the solo player in that industry to launch that particular product, right? So this can happen both with trademarks. This can happen both with patents, copyrights, or designs. So I'll take one example of a patent and copyright and trademark as well. So the first example is all of us may have heard of Lego, right? The
Yeah.
Lego toys and everything.
That's
So
right.
they patented their interlocking design. And for 20 years, there was no one else who could manufacture those Lego cubes. And they leveraged it very well because patent has a specific period you get the monopoly for. So within
Correct.
20 years, they actually went all out. They utilized that monopoly and created a brand that lasted forever. So
Correct.
Lego is a very good example
Absolutely.
of how they
Absolutely.
basically manufactured and launched their own product and service. And it was so differentiated that nobody else could compete with them.
Right.
Second example, for example, is post-it notes. So we all see
Post-it
those
notes.
post-it notes.
That's right.
It was patented by, for example, 3M. So they were researching something else, but they came up with an adhesive that can easily stick and then come out without leaving
Come out
marks.
without. Yeah.
So they came up with this patent, and for 20 years, nobody else could launch that product, and they got a lot of good business there, as well as
Correct.
they made it a brand as well.
Right.
Later on, other players can enter. A lot of medicines that we see all around us, like aspirin, that is used to treat our headache. So
Correct.
when patent was there, nobody else can manufacture it, and they had the monopoly, and they actually launched the product on a lot of money. Lipitor, if you have heard of this drug called Lipitor, which
Yeah.
is used for lowering the cholesterol,
Cholesterol. Yeah.
the drugs that earned so much money that I mean, when this was expiring, Pfizer tried everything to basically protect
Correct.
it further by making some changes. So it was
Right.
making probably 13-14 billion dollars for them every year. So this is how this monopoly can give you the edge. Frisbee. So we all play frisbee. So frisbee
Right.
was patented earlier, so and they used it for 20 years and earned a lot of money. Amazon I already talked about. So
Correct.
one-click ordering. So one-click ordering was one such differentiator that made Amazon what it is today. So you can see the criticality of IP. Pinch to zoom. So if you see that how you pinch to zoom, so it was
Right.
a patent by Apple. So Apple actually used it for a lot of monopoly earlier, but later maybe they opened it so it can grow further. So sometimes companies take a different approach, because sometimes if you keep it too close to your chest and you are only the one who is producing, you do not get the community support.
Right.
So
Correct.
so it's a strategy, but we will not get into that because this is mainly for the big guys.
Correct.
And Galaxy phones, if you get those devices that fold like this, so those kind of devices, very innovative by Samsung, and nobody else can launch it. That's why you don't see any devices from Apple or others that can fold,
Which have the
because they
same
have
feature.
right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, so these patents can really help you fight the competition if you invest the right amount of money in manufacturing, marketing, and sales. So that's, I think, the first one
Product. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about.
Second was the licensing part. I mean,
Yeah, licensing is even more interesting. Because in licensing, you're not investing money in manufacturing anything, in providing service, hiring teams, or doing all that. Here,
Correct.
you're creating the IP, and then you are earning the fruits of your inventions for a long time. And licensing sometimes is better than selling. For example, if you sell your house, right, so you have no control on what the other person is doing with that house. But when
Correct.
you license or you rent it, you can actually lay some conditions there. So
Correct.
in this case, I'll first start with an example of an Indian institute, IIT
Sure.
Delhi. We all know
Sure.
IIT Delhi.
Yeah.
So IIT Delhi developed a low-cost raincoat, and they wanted to basically give it to the rural areas. And they, being an institute, they do not have any, let's say, control over manufacturing. They do not have any manufacturing facilities and other things. So they
Right.
partnered with another company called Agumbe, and what they did was they laid out the condition that this is like a social invention for us. So we
Correct.
are giving this to you. You take the license, but they set the price that you cannot sell it more than this. And they decided that how much revenue they want back because they invented this thing. And
Correct.
it was really, really a success story because Agumbe, it's a social enterprise also. So they were
Correct.
able to distribute and sell a lot of raincoats, and IIT Delhi continuously made money on it. So that was one Indian example. But apart from that, there are so many examples which we see all across. And licensing is very interesting actually. So licensing is you can actually license one part of your thing. Let's say Disney or Ferrari, as we know both these companies. So Disney and Ferrari, they do a lot of things. So they make
Yeah.
content, or Ferrari make cars and other things. But at the same time, they license their logos to other companies who are not doing anything. They're making T-shirts which says Ferrari. They're making
Ferrari. Yeah.
shoes. So they license it to those merchandising companies like Disney.
Correct.
They license their trademark or their copyrights to multiple companies who can produce then bearing the Disney characters or Disney logo or other things.
Right. Very
Similarly,
interesting.
they give franchising. So franchising is one way you monetize your trademarks.
Monetize your
Right?
trademarks.
Very interesting example is Dolby. So we see Dolby Atmos, Dolby Digital, this, that
That's
in
right.
every theater, in every movie. When you go to buy sound bars or any
Correct.
speakers, they say Dolby. Dolby is very interesting company because they don't make anything. They are a research institute. They are a research organization. They keep on researching that how we can improve the audio quality, what new codecs we can develop, and they simply license it, and the manufacturers then will implement those technologies. And with licensing they mandate that you are using my technology, I'm giving you this, you keep paying me for each use. But at the same time, very interestingly, none of the other companies did it otherwise, because if you we are talking on this laptop, there are so many technologies inside, but we don't know the name of all the companies. But
Correct.
Dolby said, wherever you are using my technology, you also put my logo there, that Dolby Inside or Dolby Digital.
Correct.
So we
Correct.
know Dolby as a brand as well, but at the same time, they're making all their money from licensing, right?
Fantastic.
Another very
Great
interesting
example. I was not aware of it actually.
so another very good example is we see this QWERTY keyboard,
Yeah.
the keyboard layout that we have. So it was developed by an individual inventor called Christopher Scholz. And Christopher Scholz actually sold his patent to another company called Unisys. Unisys was a very large
Unisys.
IT company earlier.
Yes.
And Unisys then licensed this to almost all the typewriter manufacturers. So they did not make typewriters, but they licensed it to all the companies and earned a lot of revenue. So Christopher, who was the inventor, earned money by selling it, and then Unisys made a lot of money by licensing.
Right. So that
Right?
is where your example of sometimes licensing might be a better idea. So if
Yes.
Christopher would have done it himself, would have
Yeah.
probably been far more known than what he's known right now.
Yes, yes. But sometimes you do not have even muscle power to approach
Correct.
everyone. So it's like one way
That's
I
true.
get the
That's true.
payment, that's all. Yeah.
Correct.
And another example, very important example to note for our entrepreneurs, because sometimes we create a technology we want to work on, we want to create a company around that. But at
Right.
the same time, there is a big opportunity of licensing in parallel. So I'll give you an example of GSK. GSK is very large pharma company from UK, and everyone knows the tablet called Zentec,
Correct.
which is
Zentak. Yeah.
used for treating ulcers and all that kind of thing.
Correct.
So GSK actually produced this and distributed it in many markets, but some markets that they were not present in, some countries. they just give license to other pharma company to produce it, and they are not operating in that country, but they are still earning revenue by licensing. So let's say
Right.
if I'm an Indian entrepreneur, I develop something and I'm only targeting the Indian market, I can still protect my IP in other countries and simply license to a local partner who will run the business, and you will get some licensing revenue back. So it can
Right.
be driven by the geography. And one last example I would quote in licensing, because I find licensing is one of the very interesting things. Fab India, we all
Fab
know
India.
Fab India. Fab India is very interesting. So they actually develop a lot of new designs. And as we know, the market is very fast moving, and the designs change overnight. So
Right.
today I'm in Gurgaon, you are in Mumbai. So we actually buy a lot of designs, but after 2 years, 1 year, or even after 6 months, we'll say this design is not good. This is old. So what Fab India does is they actually have their designs protected. So while they are selling it in their stores, no one else can sell those designs because they can sue them. And once the design goes out of fashion, they still have the protection for their design left. So they license it to tier two city manufacturers where they
Correct.
still keep getting the revenue, and they're not even selling that design. So licensing can be very creative, and you can actually play with it a lot and earn multiple revenue streams just by licensing it by various applications, by various countries to different cities, or whatever you want to do.
It's a very vast area if you actually look at it. The way an inventor can actually monetize it. There's a lot of things one can do,
Yeah,
and I think this is a crucial kind of a segue into. Let me ask you the next question, which I had in mind, which came. So, we have heard of marketing strategies. A lot of marketers will come and say, "This is our marketing strategy." Somebody in the IT companies typically say, "This is our IT strategy," or even normal other companies say it's IT strategy. So, companies have a IP strategy?
right, right. And Vipul, if you allow me, I just wanted to touch upon two more things before I
Sure.
get to IP strategy.
Okay.
So one is about patent sales. So we talked about licensing, we talked
Okay.
about launching a product or this thing based on our IP. Now, sales is another avenue. So sales is really, really useful when you want to basically get money in one instance that you
Right.
can deploy in other R&D projects and other things. And typically, if you look at it, a lot of government entities like DRDO, Defense Research Organization, Development Organization. So they develop a lot of technologies for their own use and later on sell it to other companies. So, for example, DRDO, because our army people, they are everywhere, let's say in desert, where you have very big mosquitoes. So they developed a mosquito repellent.
Right.
So they were using it, and later on they sold it to a company in Kanpur, and they got the money. At the same time, the civilians got access to that particular technology. Similarly, we know about touch screen, especially the finger navigation. We can actually just scroll it, do all this kind of
Correct.
thing. So this was actually developed by a very small company called Fingerworks. They patented it, but they did not have muscle power to basically manufacture or go to the market and do all that kind of stuff. So they simply sold the patent to Apple and got a lot of money.
Okay.
So a lot of sales actually happens in that particular fashion. In India also, there are many examples. There is a Chennai-based company which developed a seismic sensor, and
Right.
they could not develop it, so they sold the entire patent to another big company, and whatever money they got, they started using in R&D. Yeah. So, and apart from sales, and there are two more things that
Sure.
there in which you can monetize. So, I mean, I'll just focus on one. You can use IP to get loans. So in
Correct.
US, you have a lot of flexibility around it. All those banks like Bank of America, Chase, everyone actually has a team that can evaluate your patents and can provide you loans based on the value of those patents. But in India also, there have been some examples. So there is a subsidiary of a large automobile company, Mahindra, and
Right.
they actually raised some money from Asian Development Bank
Okay.
by licensing some of their or by kind of using their patents as a collateral.
Collateral.
So
Okay.
yeah, so this is kind of increasing, and India banks are becoming more and more aware of this. So yeah, so that was the complete answer on
Oh, yeah.
how to monetize.
So, a little diversion from the answer that you gave at the end. So, you said a lot of banks keep this as a collateral. So is it a common practice now for companies to have their IP assets onto the balance sheet? You did mention about that, but is that a common thing, or is it
In
picking
India,
up, or how is it?
in India, not yet. In India, not yet. But yeah, there are a lot of R&D incentives. So if you can say that, yeah, we have patents and you can show them, so you can actually show how much you spend on creating those patents, and you can
Okay.
get some incentives, and incentives in the sense that you can actually show that as deductions and get some income tax benefits and few other things.
Okay.
So sale that you get, let's say using an R&D based uh, patent, so that sale can be excluded completely from the
From tax.
yeah. In some countries it could be 50%. In some countries this provision is not there. But yeah, there are a lot of provisions like that, and there are benefits of showing your assets, intangible assets like IP on balance sheets.
Oh, fabulous. So I
People,
think the
people
day is not
actually
too far. Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
people. I was just saying that companies use it very creatively. I mean, especially the public listed companies, because IP is one subject that nobody is aware about, right? So, they use the IP payments in a way. If they are missing their target, let's say earning targets for a quarter by some a small amount, let's say 500,000, 1 million, or let's say 5 million. So they will simply play around with IP. They will actually shift the maintenance fee payments or other payments to next quarter, and they will use that to justify that we met the quarterly target. So IP can be used in very creative ways, especially for the large companies.
Has somebody patented that process?
They should, right?
Maybe. Okay, so let's come back to this point about IP strategy. So,
Right. So IP strategy is very vast, as you can imagine, based on what we have been talking. But considering the audience today we have is startups, small
correct,
businesses, people
largely,
who
yeah.
get to start. So I would say let's not make it too complicated. Let's just focus on three or four things.
Sure.
The first thing is we should make the training for top management, middle management, uh, mandatory. So they should actually get a training on IP and how
Okay.
this helps. One, they understand that what is IP, and they
Correct.
start seeing that how they can leverage IP to grow their business. Right.
Right.
So this training, maybe 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever they can afford, they should actually make their people, especially the top management and middle management and senior management, go to that training.
Familiar with.
Yeah, so they understand what is IP, patents, and this helps them, and this gives them an idea when they see anything happening in their organization, they can see where they can create an IP, which will help them scale up their process, or they can help them generate new revenue sources. So that should be the first step when it comes to creating an IP strategy. Nothing too complicated. Just ensure that you train your top management, senior management, and middle management in IP. Second thing is, once you have actually trained yourself, so now you will see that people are coming up with submissions that, okay, I saw this process is happening, we are doing this and that, and maybe we can protect this.
Hmm.
So now you must actually have a process where you have 4 or 5 people's committee, which has business people, technical people, sales and marketing people, and they actually see that and try to see if it makes sense to protect that
Protect.
particular
Yeah.
thing. So they should make that process and community this committee, so they can judge. And if the committee finds this is really good and it can help us in business, they should go ahead and patent it,
Right.
right? So they keep protecting their.
Protect that. Yeah.
And within all this, one very important thing that we all miss, and all of us at whatever stage of business we are, that if we have any employees, then we must actually insert IP related clauses, because sometimes what happens, it happened in Faridabad few years ago. There was no IP clause, and they developed a very interesting sockets and switches. And this person claimed that this is my IP. There was a fight over that who should be the owner of this IP.
Oh, right.
And the person left and started his own company, because there was no clause that any IP you generate while working in my company or in this company will be owned by the company, was not
Company.
there. So he developed that technology on expense of the company, and later on took it with himself, and a company was at a loss. So
Very.
all those kind
Yeah.
of clauses are very important, very basic, but it should be there. So we talked about training and awareness. We talked about making a committee to kind of protect
Correct.
your IP. Third one is when you launch a product, especially if you're launching a product in IP savvy markets like US, Europe, or others, or Japan maybe. So you should be aware that you are not infringing on someone else's IP. If you're
Correct.
launching a product or service, you should get a quick search or quick report done to see that you are safe. You do not have any legal obligations, because I have seen many companies, I won't name them, but it was one of the largest messaging company from India. They launched in US, and as soon as they launched, they were kind of bombarded with patent lawsuits, and they withdrew from the market. They couldn't make any money, and they almost lost $20 million just kind of settling those lawsuits. So it's very important to be aware if you are infringing any of competitors or anybody else's IP, so you do not end up in that situation, right?
Yeah. And
The
vice versa, perhaps, to make sure that your patent
IP is
doesn't
not
get, so
infringed.
keeping that awareness.
Very, very important addition, yeah. And the last point, IP should not be looked at as a legal thing. Most of the
Correct.
companies, founders or otherwise, they see that IP is a legal thing, which is not correct. Because using IP as a competitive intelligence, technical intelligence tool can really help you grow your business. There are a lot of IP, or especially patents, that are not being used in India.
Hmm.
They're not protected in India, and they offer immense technical information that can help your R&D teams, your business teams, to kind of identify some knowledge nuggets that you can embed in your process without fearing any legal actions. For example, if we talk about trademarks, so you look at how people have used different names in US and other things, and you can get inspired because that thing is actually in US, and it
Right.
has no relevance in India. So now you can actually try to play with the similar things in India. It gives you a good point to start. And IP is something, the knowledge which is there in patents or trademarks, you will not find it anywhere else. Not in scientific papers, not on Google research, not on blogs, because patent, I would say, constitutes almost 70 to 80% of this Earth's knowledge, which is not published anywhere else. So we
Amazing.
miss that part. So if we can
Correct.
embed that within our process to basically research patents, research trademarks, research designs, it will give you a good playground to start on.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it's
think
very,
that's it.
yeah, because, I mean, if you look at some of our traditional, medicinal practices, I mean,
Yes.
if you notice, so there are some cures which are available, but, we don't have any process written for it. I mean, it's all understanding and, passed down the line. Even something like yoga, for example,
Yeah.
there's nobody holds a patent for yoga, right? I mean,
You cannot. It's you're
correct,
not doing anything new unless you improve on it. But
correct,
one very important thing that you mentioned now about the traditional knowledge,
right.
very interestingly, Indian government, especially the Ayush department, it
Ministry, yeah.
combined forces with many other departments, and they created a traditional knowledge digital library,
Okay.
TKDL. And this is a library which you can access, and you can find as much details as possible about all our traditional knowledge. It is cataloged properly. It has been translated into, I think, 17 or 18 languages. So it's a very, very good resource. And why they created this in the first place was so other countries cannot patent basmati rice or use of turmeric and other things.
Correct.
And this information is easily accessible to government there before they grant rights to companies on such traditional knowledge of India. Yeah, so that's a very good resource.
So tell me, in India, what's been the trend? I mean, like we said, a lot of our knowledge tends to be, or it would, even if it is recorded, it will be recorded in some language which, today we don't understand, for example, or, we don't have a proper process of recording some of these things. The government is now putting things into place. So is that one of the reasons? Because, we typically hear that India lags behind, the rest of the world in terms of, the number of patent applications filed or the number of patents granted and so on and so forth. I mean, firstly, is that correct
Mhm.
interpretation of things? And, if so, why do you think that happens? And how do you think we can change that?
Right, right. Very, very good question, because yeah, it all comes down to number ultimately.
Correct.
So yeah, so I would say that, and I'm not being political in any sense, but I would say in last 10 years, India has done tremendously well in terms of IP and how it should be. So one of there were few challenges which were actually restricting people from filing in India. especially the large companies from globes. They were not filing in India, number one, because if they file a patent, it would sometimes take 5 years, sometimes it will take 10 years, 12 years to get them granted or the final results is out.
Right.
So they say that, yeah, by that time technology is over, so we don't want to basically file in India. Second problem was the IP codes. There were no separate IP code, and you have to go through the legal system, and there was no judgment. So they say even if we have a patent in India, somebody will infringe it, and we will not be able to stop them because legal system will take its own time to
In
settle.
sweet time, yeah.
So that was the biggest hurdle in people filing patents in India from outside or even from India.
Right.
From India, filing patents in India, so Indian entrepreneurs awareness level was very low. So if you see any speeches by any of the past prime ministers uh, or any of the ministers like Minister of Commerce or Minister of Finance, rarely you will hear the word intellectual property or patent. But
Correct.
now, last 10 years, I have attended so many sessions in person, virtually, otherwise. I would see that ministers they directly use patent, intellectual property, and all those kind of things in their speeches.
Right.
India got its first national IPR policy. So we have been independent in 1947, and we actually got into TRIPS and all those kind of things, agreements, WTO and others in
90s.
1990s
Yeah.
and 2004. But India never had a IP policy. That what should be our policy on promoting IP and other things. In 2016, we got our first IP policy,
Right.
and the results are visible. So why I say results are visible? We were granting only 4,000 patents per year in 2013-14. Only 4,000.
4,000.
Uh,
Okay.
and last year, I mean 23-24, we granted 100,000 patents.
Okay.
100,000, which is
Okay.
25
Okay.
times
25
what we
times.
were doing
Yeah.
10 years ago. Another thing, right now, India ranks at number 6 in total filings by country. So top is China, followed by United States, Europe, and like that. India is at number 6, but India is at number 1 when it comes to the growth of IP filings. So last year, the World Intellectual released a report, and India was at number 1 because they registered a 31% growth over filings last year. So
Okay.
India is doing extremely well. So two challenges that I mentioned because of which India was not getting enough filings. One was the time of grant, how long it took to grant. So now they have implemented these measures. They granted 1 lakh patents last year. So they have
Yeah.
done a lot of hiring in patent office for patent examiners
Correct.
and introduced many new provisions. In one case, we got a patent granted just in 8 months for one of our customers now. So which
Wow.
is commendable. Similarly, trademarks. So trademark India is at number 3 globally in terms of number of trademarks being filed, and we have very good litigation system for trademarks as well as now you can get a trademark within 6 to 8 months as well. Second, the legal system. So this government in last 5 to 7 years they have established a separate IP court at the High
Right.
Court level, and they actually pulled in all the good IP lawyers. So now the judges there are past IP lawyers, so they understand the nitty-gritties of IP litigations, and this
Correct.
has really increased IP litigation in India, which are being concluded. And more companies are opting to litigate in India now. There are various reasons. Let's not get into those, but yeah, uh, many companies are now looking to litigate in India, and they're already litigating.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say that, yeah, we are on the right track. If we want to basically get to, let's say, a good number in next 5 to 7 years, the only thing we need to focus on is awareness. Because
Right.
in this podcast that you're doing, I mean, it's a business podcast and we're talking about intellectual property. It's a very good start.
Great. Thank you so much. I mean, if we can contribute to making this, take India to the levels that China or the US have, I mean, a little contribution from our side would be very, very helpful. Okay, so now let's take it a little closer home for you. I mean, you've been in this business, tell us your journey with Sagacious. I mean, I've read it. I mean, we've had a brief chat, so I know a bit about it, but I want the rest of the community to know it because it's a very inspiring journey. I was very inspired by what you said, and there's also something that we discussed about scaling up. So I would like you
Right.
to talk about that as well. So if you can just tell us your journey, how did you get into this, and what's been your
Right.
journey over the years?
Right. So I actually graduated from college. I was at BITS Pilani. So I
Right.
graduated in 2005 and I joined a research laboratory which was doing microbiology research that time. And I did an internship where I got to know about patents a little bit. And after that, I worked in a couple of organizations and I worked, I think, for around 3 years
Right.
total in my career. And after that, I directly started this IP consulting company called Sagacious because I believe that I understand IP now very well. And with my domain expertise, I'm able to support companies with IP information. So, as I said,
Right.
IP can be a good information source for competitive and technical intelligence. So, that's
Right.
where we started as a company.
Correct.
So, we started with this particular use case using IP information for technical and competitive intelligence, and we started serving some of the companies. And we started as a three-people team. And being a knowledge company, it was very difficult for us to find right people who can deliver the same level of intelligence as we were doing. And we struggled a lot. I mean, initially, let's say 1, 2, 3 years, maybe, we were actually working almost 24 cross 7. And I told you in our chat that, yeah, one of my co-founders, he just got married when we were starting up. And for initial 2 years, I think he spent much more time with me than maybe his wife.
Yeah,
So
I know. Yeah.
because it was a struggle because in knowledge economy and you are a small company, you have your customers, to your chest because you don't want to lose them. So it's a tough thing because you can't trust your people because they will not deliver the same quality, and you
Right.
want to deliver the best quality. You have set a benchmark already, and
Yeah.
you're working 24 cross 7. And that's where we realized either we run it as a self-employed business like many CAs and others do, where they are involved in each and every project and they take up only that they can
What
deliver.
they can manage. Yeah.
Yeah. Or we have to make a choice whether we want to really grow this company into a global company because we are actually adding value to lives of the companies whom we are working with. So we decided that, yeah, our aim is to become global and very large. So
Right.
what we did was we then started brainstorming then how to do it. I mean, we cannot multiply ourselves. So I think we realized that trust, if we put into people who are
Mm.
under us, it can really help. So
Okay.
we did a little maneuver actually. So earlier we were sending reports directly to the customers. So one of my co-founders suggested, let's do one thing. Let's create a email ID, a fictitious email ID, and ask the team members who are working under us, who are not up to the mark as per us, let them send the reports directly to that particular ID, saying
To
that you are
that
directly
customer.
sending to the customer. So we did that. I liked the idea, and we together decided we will do it. And so we saw the person who was sending to that ID. Earlier, what was like that as soon as it was 6 o'clock in the evening, the person will directly, whatever he has done, he will send it to us and go home. So now what happens? He now knows that I have to send it to the customer. So at 5 o'clock, he starts writing those emails and everything that, yeah, I have to send. And it was a small office. We could see each other what they are doing. So this person was actually opening the report, and he opened the report, I would say, at least 15 times, making some modifications, some changes every time. And the output that he sent on that email, because we had access to that email, we saw that we changed it and sent further. But yeah, output was almost 90 to 95% accurate.
Wow. Okay.
That actually gave us a good learning that if you trust people and give them responsibilities and do not really micromanage, they can deliver wonders. Because sometimes you are too ingrained in your ego that, yeah, you can do the best and others cannot match your level. And that was the initial mantra, that trust and freedom that we actually uh, understood and implied. But of course, we kind of got confused with our own mantras later on as well. So we were able to sort out this operational thing. We added many more services on the journey. So we started working with companies on commercialization, monetization, and others. But later on, what we realized that we are still struggling in large decisions, on growth decisions, and other things. And me and my co-founder are too much involved. So
Right.
I frustrated one day and I just left 2 months. So I said, okay, I'm just going away. So I went away for 2 months and I was in Latin America and my mobile phone was not working. I was with my wife and my daughters. And and I was like, let them handle whatever they will do. They'll do good or bad. And when I came back, I was really surprised that a lot of decisions that I thought cannot happen without me, because they were sending me constant reminders, sir, what is your input? What is this? What is that? I was not reachable, so they have to make a
They
decision.
have to do it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, in 60 to 70% cases, they made really good decisions. I mean, better than me in many cases.
Sure.
In
Wow.
rest 30% cases, they were not able to make decisions, but that helped me realize where am I actually needed. So I was filling up my time with those 100 things, out of which 70 they could easily take care. So now my task was basically focus on those 30 and new things. Now I made it a practice every year, every 2 months or 3 months, I'll just vanish and I'll let them make decisions. And this has really helped. And now we try to basically guide our juniors who are actually leading teams and are in similar positions that, yeah, my team members are not good. They're not able to deliver 100%. I'm 24 cross 7 involved. I actually recommend them that you go on a vacation for 1.5 months, switch off your mobile phone, and you will see the changes. And
Correct.
they have
Correct.
actually experienced it themselves. Yeah. So,
So,
yeah,
so, so your management mantra is get out of the way.
get out of the way, yeah, and trust.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I think so. I think it happens to most of us who start off, because we start thinking that, if we don't pay the attention, it's not going to work out. And then, when we actually get pleasantly surprised, like you said, that when people do a much better job than we would have probably done it, and that's when you begin to trust.
Yeah,
Very, very good management mantra here, Tarun. I think
thank you.
other than IT training, I think you should take up management training also, if the time permits, of course, and actually help entrepreneurs in this journey, because a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck because they are doing even the basic things themselves,
Yeah,
reading emails, for example,
very true.
and get caught up in that. And rather than that, a great exercise by you, where you gave the responsibility to your juniors, and they did a much better job than you expected out of them. And perhaps, and
Better than
very,
less.
very modest of you to say that they actually did it better than you would have done.
Yeah,
So kudos to you, and that's, I think, showing in your success. I mean, how you've grown over the years, and today you are present in virtually the whole of the world. What we'll do is, what's next for your company now? I mean, you're here right now, you're doing extremely well. What
right.
next?
So what we are trying to do now is, because as sagacious, so we serve customers at various stages of their IP journey. So we serve customers who are just starting their IP journey. We serve customers who are, I mean, behemoths, and they have very strong IP strategy, which is being followed and learned by many new companies. And we work with customers in almost all segments, like pharmaceuticals, life sciences, automobiles, robotics, telecommunication, and our customers currently come from more than 80 countries. So, with this wide and very deep knowledge of best practices that are applicable across the globe,
Right.
we are trying to do two things. So, currently we are developing a platform, like a Salesforce or something for sales. So, we are trying to develop a platform which can help companies which are small and medium size streamline their innovation and IP protection process. And
Mm,
we try to basically implement all the best practices we have learned across the years. So
correct.
that is our first focus, apart from what we are doing currently and growing there. Second focus is actually because I'm a Indophile. I just want to basically, I had many options to basically leave the country, settle outside, and do work with the customers and other things. But I chose to stay back, and my focus is, even though, I mean, of course, you can't get that much money in India by selling these kind of services. My goal is to basically utilize my knowledge to support small and mid-sized enterprises, or even the large enterprises in India who are not IP savvy yet, but to help them become IP savvy. And if I can help India reach at least 10 lakh patents by 2030. Yeah.
10 lakh patents every year, you mean?
Yeah.
10 lakh patents a year.
Which is
Okay,
like a
that's
10
great.
jump.
10 times jump from the current stage.
Yes.
That's ambition. Okay, so let's come to the crux of this entire discussion. If you know, our podcast is called Business Networking. So, in all of this, do you actually get time to do any networking at all, or you're
I do, I
uh,
do. I just said that I try to free up myself. So
correct?
I get time to do a lot of networking. And what I have realized, because I'm active in a lot of networks. So
Right.
the most important ones are my alumni networks, because alumni networks can be really
It's
powerful.
Pilani, yeah.
So yeah, I come from BITS Pilani, and even my school, I was in boarding, and that school has a very wide network, and
Okay.
we have people in different. And I would say that more than your college network, your school networks are much more powerful. The
Right.
reason is when you come to engineering or medical or any college, so your network is limited to a similar type of people. But when it
Right.
comes to school, so people go in different directions. So you have a lot of doctors, you have a lot of IPS officers, you have a lot of businessmen, you have a lot of engineers, you have a lot of different kind of people.
Correct.
So I try to remain active in those networks. So it all started in COVID. So in COVID, as you see in the second wave, there were a lot of hue and cry for help and this,
Yeah.
that. And I was active in these alumni networks. I mean, not very actively, but yeah, I was there, so I could see that, yeah, what is the composition of these networks. So I proposed to both my presidents of alumni networks that we should actually do something and create a program where we can help people in distress, because we have people in different positions. There are at least 15 to 20 people who own their own hospitals. There are many IPS officers in this group. So, and there are many, let's say, doctors in this group. So we actually, I gave in and I spent so much time during second wave that almost 24 cross 7 I was working on this particular network and trying to basically help people. And
Oh, okay.
gladly, I think we were able to help more than 1,500 people in
Wow. Okay.
crisis. And our initiatives were covered by many newspapers as well later. And we also extended this to helping community, in the sense that we were raising funds to support, let's say, folk artists in Jaisalmer who were not having any shows or any performances,
Right.
and they image this thing. So we raised money. In my network, there was someone from Book My Show. So we conducted a virtual concert for them, which was streamed live across the globe, and we raised money through that as well. But after this exercise, I realized if you give to your network, whatever your time, your money, your let's say connections, or your
Correct.
knowledge. So I mean, what you receive
Is
is 10 times more,
multifold.
maybe
Multifold.
100 times more. And
Correct.
since I think I have been very active, I have started many new initiatives in these networks to support the juniors we have in our college, or people who are just graduating, who are starting their business. So we have different communities to support each other, and all that kind of thing. And this
Correct.
really helps in my own business as well, because I need any connections. I just post a message and I get 10 connections that, yeah, you
Right.
talk. So that really helps.
Okay. I thank you very much for that reply. I mean, because a lot of people, think networking is all about whining and dining, and and occasionally hear the complaint that I don't have time to do that. But what you rightly said, it can actually do good to a lot of people, and you, as they say, the universe will conspire back to give
Very
you
true.
many, many times more than what you've actually given. Apart
Very
from the satisfaction of having done things, the example of the folk artists of Jaisalmer that you rightly said, I mean, truly, I'm sure they are somewhere blessing you, and thanking you for what you did. Uh, so, thanks for that. That was very inspirational. Also, you know, we're coming to the fag end of the hour, actually, and I've taken up more time than I thought I'd take with you. So, is there anything more that you think I've left out, or in the questions,
true.
the way they were framed, you
No,
couldn't?
I
Is
think
there
you
anything else that you want to do?
frame them
Say,
very
please.
well. And my only gist is that, yeah, people should have this basic IP strategy that I talked about. They should get trained on IP, start identifying IP in their processes, protect them, and be aware of any legal hassles by launching your product by not infringing anyone else's IP, and use IP not as a legal but a technical and competitive intelligence tool as well. So that's about IP and about business. I think my only recommendation, if you want to scale up, then trust people, give them freedom, get out of their way. This will help you grow the business, at the same time manage your work-life balance.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for participating with us, Tarun. And folks, here is Tarun Bansal. I started out trying to, get him to talk about IP, but what I realized is we're talking, to a businessman who also has a lot of management lessons for us, and also, incidentally, is an ace networker in that sense. And what he said today was very, very interesting in the sense that a lot of us know IP as, something that lawyers have to look at, I mean, not my thing, it's for lawyers. So he's made it very simple. And, I thank him for that. Thank you very much. And I look forward to meeting you soon. I mean, if possible,
Sure.
in person. You are in
Yes.
Gurgaon, and I'm sitting here in Mumbai. So not possible to meet in person, but hopefully someday. And
Someday.
thanks for the time.
Thank you, Vipul, and thank you for starting this wonderful podcast. I'm sure, I mean, as it grows, it will definitely help a lot of listeners with various insights because we learn from experiences.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.